All right, we're going to call this work session of the Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee to order for March 8th, 2022. First item on the agenda is 70 Court Street. We're requesting a commission use permit for parking.
We'll start that one, just state for the record that information conveyed that this item will not require public hearings under site plan regulations section 1.2.2 section for a small project. We did ask that this come to the technical advisory committee work. This will be moving along to the planning board should the TAC agree to that. And that's,
Thank you. I'm Chris Mulligan from Boson and Associates here in Portsmouth. Next to me is Eric Sari from Altus Engineering, also in Portsmouth. I believe on Zoom we have John Simonis, who's the applicant, or the principal of the applicant. And first, I'd like to thank you all for getting us on your agenda. I understand this one's a little unorthodox the way this came to you procedurally, you may recall that we were here for a work session about a month ago, February 8th, I believe it was, at which time we discussed a similar plan, although one that was different in the sense that it had a different parking configuration than what we were prepared to go forward with. Since that time, we obtained necessary variances from the Board of Adjustment in February to establish that the use is permitted and that a substandard travel lane would be permitted. So our next step is to move forward to obtain the conditional use permit for parking relief where we have proposed 5 spaces and 11 are required under the ordinance. So that's basically the overview. The latest plan we have, I believe, is dated February 28th, which shows our current proposed parking.
You all set, Chris?
Yeah.
Any comments from TAC members?
I've got a few.
Right.
So, Chris, the former connector to the abutting property is being extinguished because there's not an access easement being provided, right?
That's correct.
And we
So
had,
many words.
we had a driveway through there last time we saw this.
Travel.
Travel lane.
Yeah.
So the question I have is what is the applicant proposing to do to either permanently or semi-permanently lock that throughway from those 2 parking spaces that now reside, or at least space number 3 resides where the former driveway connector was. It seems to me like if this is not intended to be something people cross and recross, that there would be some landscaping, fencing, maybe bollard, something to demarcate the difference between the sides of the property. Leaving it a free-flowing passageway, which it still would remain if it's not in any way blocked.
Well, I guess I would say we're open to suggestions for how to accomplish that. One of the limiting factors we have is we have to maintain an easement for a parking space between the 2 properties, and I think we discussed this.
So you're leaving them, you're granting the abutter an easement on your property in order to park the car where that pavement is to the right, yeah.
Right here?
So you're providing an easement to them, but them not to you.
That's correct.
So the only real way to do that effectively is with a fence. The fence would be, that's a much wider space than it needs to be on the two properties, that fence doesn't have to be right up against the nose of the 19-foot stall, but you could have it a foot or two back, still provide the ability for that easement area to work. Looks like it's probably 14 feet wide.
You're talking about between the
Yeah.
buildings.
The shared.
Yeah.
So I think where you've got your little arrow, you could put a fence down there, down below, right down there.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that gap that still makes that parking space work. In order to provide the screen and to prevent conflicts. So that was one comment I had, food for thought. The second one was, it seems to be like, unless there's a problem, you could take those two parking spaces, you've got 12.75 feet for the space closest to Mark Street, to the south. Is it possible that you could shift those two spaces away from the back of the building and put some pavers on the back of the building that are mountable, just like the other pavers? So those spaces are not, that space number 3 is not right up against the building. Follow what I'm saying? You've got 9, it's like 9 feet and 12.75. So you have 3, almost 4 feet of surplus space between the back of the building and the property line. So I'm just suggesting maybe you move the 3 and 4 there to the south and use that 3 3/4 foot space for some pavers. So you could at least walk back there and get over to your mechanical equipment. And the car would be inclined to park further away from the back of the building.
Yeah. See no problem with that.
That's it.
Next.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before, and I know you're not there yet, but I wanna make sure you're too far along before you satisfy the accessible parking requirements, particularly the van, and you see that space number 1, you have an 8-foot wide space, but the van requirement would require 96-inch wide space adjacent to the primary.
Yeah, but that's the space in the papers. It doesn't have to be the same surface as long as. The idea is
The door would open and then it would.
exactly, or the van could pull in the paper space.
Got it, okay, that's good. And what about accessible entry to the building itself? Is that off of Mark Street?
That is, we're still pursuing that. We need to have. There are exemptions for historical buildings.
Right, but this is an old chain use.
Exactly. So there, that's outside of my realm. I can talk about parking all day, but once we get into building elements, we can.
Just be forewarned, be
Yeah.
careful, because it's still a sticking point.
Yeah.
you know.
If it needs a ramp somewhere.
Thank you.
No?
Is there parking on Mark Street?
There is no parking on our side.
Right away, I think it probably makes sense to add some pavers where you're stopping your landscaping at the edge of the sidewalk.
Yeah,
Maybe just bring your pavers out to the edge.
and not go green, just go pavers.
No, do your landscaping where you have the gap right now. You have a gap between the end of the landscaping and the end of your pavers for your handicap spot.
Okay.
And I see why you did it that way, but maybe it would make sense to have some pavers here.
I stopped the landscaping just because that's what the sidewalk.
Yeah, so I'm
That's-
not discouraging you. You could either extend the landscaping, but it seemed to make more sense to me that you just bring the pavers over. So if you're walking down the sidewalk, you swing left,
Yeah.
whatever. It's a minor point.
Any other comments?
We want to do it a full site.
Okay.
And then lastly, I know we talked about this before, are these the same architectural drawn floor plans that you had before?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll address the swings of the.
Oh, yeah, everything is-
Okay.
not for nothing, but we really would need to book neighbors along the sides and under the stairs, not leave that whole pavement. Whatever's going on under the stairs, it's not for the visitors.
Oh, you're right. If it lands on a concrete pad, it's square, you can see, but there's areas that I believe are dirt.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, work around it, that's under the stairs.
The red would be dirt, so we can base
Yeah,
that.
dirt's not funny.
Where would you bring the fire suppression systems?
That is a good question.
I'm curious because we're paving Court Street.
Oh, didn't know that, okay,
They'll have a moratorium on it.
yep, okay, that's good to know. Is that fixed yet, to the schedule, or is that still?
Yeah, it's fully, but we were hoping to do it midsummer.
So I got one more comment on the parking generation. I noticed you used the Saturday time period for that. Looking through the manual, it actually says that peak weekdays generate more parking.
I looked at that and I figured Portsmouth is more of a weekend destination, so I figured the turnover was gonna be on Saturday, Sunday. That was my rationale behind it. Either way, we're still a little bit short of parking, so it doesn't really, kind of splitting hairs there. That was why I did it.
Shows that you should probably have at least one parking space for each.
That would be nice.
And the variance that you got was for the 16.2 foot aisle.
I actually think it was, the variance was.
13.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
less than
it was
this.
less
It's
than
an
that.
existing. You weren't here.
Welcome back.
And the use as an in,
Yeah.
is the other.
It's just a steady thing. I know it's how it's.
And we talked last time, whether or not at least one, not more of the space it would be for checking. What happens if all these spaces?
Yeah, I mean, so the business model that we anticipate we're going to be using, and if Mr. Simonis is zoomed in, he can chime in.
I'm here.
A remote check-in type system. So we anticipate that we'll have the ability to coordinate as best we can with people coming and going, and shuffling the parking needs as guests get booked in. They'll be booked in ahead of time. They'll be given information on how to get there and where they can park, et cetera. What we hope to do is, and I think we discussed this at the last work session, is use the accessible space as a hybrid accessible loading space, which I understand something that I learned is permissible in certain circumstances. So we're hopeful that we can use that for most of the kind of transient in and out as people are voting out before they find their final parking destination. I don't know if John's got anything else he wants to add to that.
No, can you hear me?
Yep.
The only anticipatory deliveries we have scheduled are linen services. Everything else would be either, trash barrels brought out to the sidewalk on trash pickup day, or trash pickup if we have a private service. But those are the only two prospective delivery vehicles we anticipate in the property. There's no, restaurant per se. There's no real other deliveries that we have.
I think the question was probably more related to, yes, the deliveries, but I have a potential solution back to what I presented to you earlier. If there was any issue with using the handicap space for deliveries, because I can imagine some people would have issues with that in terms of conflicts and availability. if you slid this down to 3.75 feet, introduced neighbors, this could actually be a designated loading space that, you know, there's a little walkway off the back of the building, open the doors of the car and come in the door. You still have that, but at least there'd be something better on paper to avoid that conflict. That's what does anybody not understand what just a repeat of what I said before, move those 2 parking spaces away from the back of the building, the 3.75 feet they have to spare. Put in pavers flush, and that would serve as a loading space with that nearly 4-foot walkway next to the parking space to get out of the car, and go in the back door. If there- you know,
Yeah, parking space needs to be wider anyways, being next to a building.
Yeah, exactly.
We can definitely move the line of division between space 3 and 4 rearward to accommodate a buffer zone up against the building. And then that would accommodate Nick's prospective delivery area.
Good idea.
Still there's a problem of people checking in, standing, checking. Stuff. Yeah.
But I think
But the exemption of space, something.
Yeah.
There's a time of that.
right, they're gonna have a handle on who's coming and going. You know, they're gonna know if someone is an ADA person who needs to use that space, they're gonna know that ahead of time. So that space will be open unless the guest is gonna need that space. So I think that really becomes the drop-off space and the loading space.
So is this reservation only? In other words, you can't just walk in and look around?
No,
That's correct.
There's no concept.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Reservation only.
Don't know. If they don't have enough parking, at least this, they're gonna need directions. You got a parking space, you're space number 5. Or you're going to the garage or you're going down the street. So many people.
That makes perfect sense.
Little more management.
There will be a caretaker.
There will be a caretaker, yes.
Please press the pound key to finish the verification.
There's how many units?
It's gonna be 8 rooms and a caretaker.
Caretaker will not get.
Right, anything else from anyone?
So we were going to send you these notes, and I think that confirm that updated plans, which we. It's already been noticed for the planning board, we'll send you the notes, and then we'll get those plans checked out. Make sure that we have it on the agenda. It's already on the agenda, but make sure that we can give it a complete. Are you agreeable to most of it?
Yeah, I think we are.
Oh.
If you can meet that deadline.
Thursday, then.
Thursday, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda. We have 405 South Street for subdivision.
Thank you. John Shagnon from Abbott Engineering with me is Patrick Tyson from SAI Builders, representing the subdivision of 405 South Street. The subdivision plan is shown on the screen. So it's a long, sort of narrow, rectangular lot coming off South Street. On the rear part of the property, it is accessed by McNabb Court. So the plan is to divide the lot into two conforming lots with they're pretty much equal area. You can see a darker line that is behind the existing shed and garage. And then the vacant lot 2 is proposed to be built upon. Next slide. This is the existing conditions plan. So there's topography slopes from going a little bit higher off of South Street to a high point about at the back of the house in the existing garage, and then it slopes down a pretty consistent grade and flattens out in the rear. It gets flat for the McNabb Court intersection. Next slide. So we wanted to, we included in the subdivision package a potential house to put everything in context, and that house was designed by the builder. Originally, they had a desire to put the house sort of on the north end of the lot and oriented like the two homes on McNabb Court immediately to the west. So it would be as far as possible from the existing home and garage. But the way that the lot topography is and the neighborhood topography, that section of the lot is kind of a low point neighborhood. So in order to address concerns about putting the house in that location and potentially displacing that area for the water to collect, worked very hard to redesign a house that would fit into the hill and be up on the south end of this proposed lot to leave that area available for drainage. The plan does require a setback variance. If you look at the existing proposed structure, I'm sorry, the garage portion of that is sort of pushed back to the east. And so it requires a rear setback variance. But the reason that we did that was to provide space for potentially working with the Public Works Department on an easement or some thoughts about snow plowing. Currently, there's a chain link fence that runs along westerly boundary of the 405 South Street parcel, and the snow plowing on McNabb Court kind of comes up to and pushes snow straight ahead, but is limited by that fence. Subsequently, during heavier storms, there's going to be a snow pile that would kind of come out into the street and really sort of block access to the right side of the last two homes. So the thought is that maybe there could be a way for plowing to sort of continue and have the snow get pushed. But we're here to talk about how that might work. And next plan. It's a grading plan. So that just shows proposed grading. The shows how the house fits into the slope. It doesn't require a whole lot of rearranging the grades. And then the driveway is elevated a little bit above the existing ground, so it preserves that low spot that's in the north end of the lot. The next plan is the utility plan. Currently, there are public utilities in McNabb Court that come off of Lincoln. And then there's a sewer manhole that we would tie into, the water line that ends the hydrant that we would tie into. And there's a spaghetti conundrum of overhead electric wires that we're working with Eversource to try to come up with a good solution to figure out how to service this lot with power. This plan was created before we were able to get information from the city's database, but it's fairly, I think it's really representative. Maybe some slight tweaks to that, but in general, it accurately shows the location of utilities. Approach from Lincoln. Sheets, so as required for a subdivision application, if you get feedback. Questions?
Any comments? Nothing.
Does the porch require a variance as well, or is it 19.5?
Porch does not,
I
porch
think,
in the front.
so I believe Attorney Durbin reached out to Mr. Stith. And I think that it was determined that based on this configuration, the westerly line would constitute a front yard. And I believe that's a 15-foot setback.
That's great.
GR.
So the garage, though, which you're saying is on the rear, they use a variance.
Correct.
Portion of the porch is encroaching on the rear setback as well. I know it's only
Oh,
7 inches.
I'm sorry, I was referring to the front porch.
Oh, no, the proposed porch
Yeah,
on the
so-
rear.
So that proposed porch is actually going to be a patio.
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
It's not shown on the elevations, yeah, because it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can change that to patio on the plan. Instead of proposed porch. Good.
Assuming this would be at court package.
I assume it would, but that will be up to the city to determine.
You know how long that court is? The offshoot of it. Yeah, we can put a scale. on it. We're talking about just the portion from the right portion, on our way to. Yeah, from the intersection. So to the property line in the center of the road is 90 feet. What's the width of that? The width is over 20. Back down to 18 towards the end. So it starts out at 20.
How snow plowing work? Is this a publicly? Yeah, so right now, do they push all the snow into this?
Fence.
There's a fence there,
Fence there.
so
Push it up against.
up against the fence at the very end. So now you have to go somewhere else, because the fence won't allow it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you tell us how?
He did. So that's what.
Yeah, but the city's not gonna push, you're gonna push it onto somebody's property that's living there without an easement.
No, that he's.
Buffer you need.
Okay. I understand. No, I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Keep going on. Circle back.
Oh, you're showing a 6-inch solar. The solar has to be 6 inches, need to match grounds inside the minimum. But right now, there's only a 300 foot difference listed. Not sure what the invert in is, if that's proposed. It needs to be higher.
that's a proposed. Where that's coming from, might come from.
I do not know. The one thing that besides I guess the snow plowing is more or less forced into that. But the drainage for the lot. You're gonna need to drain the roof area at least. So I think you're gonna need to extend that drain line. That's on that court up to the building. That'll give you a place to tie a sump pump into as well. Do the test pit in there, see what the soil.
Yeah, they didn't make it onto the drawing, so we have. It's pretty true, I can pass it around, sorry.
Sure says the electric figured out, John. Okay, see.
Okay,
I don't know if they ever done. Yeah, so we're gonna high water.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so I'd like you to maybe think about, the water tank basement. And doing like a stone. Drip edge layer all the way around the building. Find that in. Drainage system, so you pick up the roof water. I'm trying to do water down deep. And then you can leave a vertical riser there for the sump pump. For the inside, which that be the permanent drains at the inside foundation, not outside. So I'm not trying to water the whole slope. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, except you make the pit watertight too, part of the watertight.
Well, though, because it's clay, it's not gonna move through there very easily.
Right.
I'm not necessarily worried about that.
Right.
But I wouldn't want you to sit on flat. I wouldn't want you to try to de-water 8 feet of foundation. That's heavy for that wall.
Dave, does that mean you wouldn't have any trucks going under the footing at all? No, you have to form up directly on the clay, try to lock it.
Yeah, and then you'd have to figure out what their, that's the place. Yep. That's the way to do that. So John, if you could show that electrical, show the drainage connection, show the detailing for that, 6-inch sewer lateral, all that on the permit plan. Then I understand what you're doing with leaving the low spot, which I think is fine for whatever part of the driveway that you can't capture. The drains all the way around the building. Should be okay. We just don't want the people downhill to have an issue.
Yep.
But it's good things, you know,
Porch side. I don't know if you saw on C3 where I put the drip apron.
right, but there'll be more of that, right?
Well, if you go further down here, there are some. See the area there that's going north-south on that bump out. There's architectural plans, I think, further in the section.
Yeah.
Keep going down.
Okay.
On D2, show a detail EC3 and it shows the stone.
Drip apron, yeah, drip apron with stone.
So we want to pick up as much of that roofing area as we possibly can.
Yeah, so we keep going, there's the
That's a lot of roof.
addition on that side. Yeah, there he goes, beginning, sorry. So on the top left, that bump out to the right of the porch is dormer. So I guess I can put a drip apron under it, but I couldn't put a gutter. That's what I was trying to.
No, you don't need a gutter, but you need to have a paper.
Okay.
So that we're not capturing groundwater, but we're not flooding downstream properties either.
Put the collection point above clay layer. Okay, I've just got two quick comments. Is this, Joe, your project? No, you're the guy building? I just have a number of design comments on the building that I didn't wait to talk about. Take it or leave it kind of thing. It's not part of the review here, so rather than go through them now. Yeah, what's that?
We'd like you to consider these.
Yep, minor changes that I think might help the architecture, but maybe not very. Side that. We don't need to do it now. You can, contact me after this. Okay, the only question I have related to the subdivision plan or the site plan here is, it seems to me to make some sense, just at the end of McNabb Court, where you go from 22 feet to 20 feet to 14 and a half feet to get into the site. That you take that residual space that goes to the stairs at the bottom of the porch and do a paving, do pavers out into McNabb Court. This is the most paved little street I've ever seen with pavers. In Portsmouth, everybody's got some paving, either on the patios or the driveways on McNabb Court. It would make sense to me to have something like that there that you could mount, which would widen that for people to get in there, including the snowplow. So a flush mounted paver in the area that hatch, that would go to the foot of the stairs of the porch. So you can walk downtown without necessarily needing to go out in the driveway from the end of your stairs.
Okay, I don't know, does that leave enough space for vehicular access?
Yeah, it'd be mountable. It'd be
Flush,
flush.
okay,
It's more like a textural change.
Yeah,
To show that it's pedestrian. Yeah, that's great.
yeah, it was good.
The driveway,
It's 14 something.
because parking is allowed on the street.
Can't be down there. Well, actually. Well, who cares?
Someone could, I can see the streets coming up among neighbors. People gonna park their car out there just to block their driveway. Legally park.
You can't block somebody's driveway.
You can't block for them.
You can't block somebody's driveway.
And you make it very difficult.
What would that be going on now? I'm not sure what the point is.
No, if you park in front of number 53, then you.
53 is where? Hang on. Right here.
I think it
50. Yeah, you'd be blocking their driveway. Yeah, so you can't block blocks.
Actually, Nat Geo has some.
Yeah.
That's what he did.
Yeah, right now it's the end of the road, it's like they're on their private, but
Other behaviors will change.
yeah, they'll have to.
It's pretty easy. It is.
See neighbors coming back, or you coming back in a few years and saying, well, we need to be strict parking on the street. So I can get in and out of my driveway. Like you said, it should be handled without the, with the parking, not blocking the driveway.
Yeah, gotta be pretty dumb to do that.
Or just, not dumb, but intentional.
Okay. To a lot of.
Mean spirited.
Yes.
Mean spirited, yeah.
Right.
Gonna have a lot of work.
What's that street name?
Yeah.
Like I'm not property in the street, it look like a stub out, but I would park in the street.
Well,
I mean, I think there's.
Comes to parking.
Welcome back. Back. Welcome back.
Hey,
He didn't even miss you.
No.
hey, I said.
You left?
Any other comments?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Well said.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. So we'll probably be making a submission to the radio attack.
And do you have a moment after the meeting? Follow up with our phone call yesterday.
Yeah, I was out yesterday. I think I caught up with the message.
Yes, yep, as Joe says, it'd be quick, I guess, we're all set.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, next up, we have 437 Lafayette.
Stuff in the garage. Because that would be the one way through. Yeah, I said. Oh.
I haven't listened to
Alright, good afternoon, Chairman Smith and members of the committee. My name is Justin Masick, and I'm an engineer at TF Moran. I'm joined here today by Joe Calderola of Smithfield Construction. The project that we're presenting is a proposed 3-lot subdivision located at 437 Lafayette Road on tax map 229, lot 1. The lot is bordered by Andrew Jarvis Drive to the north and Hartwheel Ave to the south. A partial plan set, including 6 sheets, was included with our application for this work session. Included in this plan set was a cover sheet, existing features and a test pit log plan, a site preparation plan, site layout plan, grading drainage plan, and a utility plan. I'll start off on what's shown on the board now, which is our existing conditions plan, sheet S1. The existing lot is a 1.5 acre lot that contains a 1-story home in the center of the property, a detached garage, and an existing driveway that connects Andrew Jarvis Drive to Hartwell Avenue. Moving ahead to the site layout plan, CO3. The intent of this project is to subdivide the existing lot into 3 lots, protecting the existing home on lot 2 located in the center, while constructing 2 new homes on proposed lots number 1 and 3. The existing driveway and the detached garage would both be removed, and a portion of the existing Hartwell Ave would be narrowed. The minimum road width would be shrunk down to 27 feet at the most narrow section, which is actually at a proposed bump out at the east end of Hartwell Ave, shown kind of by a darker gray hatch color there. Lot number 1, a proposed 1-story, 1,834 square foot house is being proposed with a screened porch and a paver patio in the backyard. On lot 3, a 1-story, 4,249 square foot house is being proposed with an accessory dwelling unit attached on the east end of the building. Second driveway for parking is also being proposed towards the east end of Hartwell Avenue. Other improvements depicted on this plan include a new walkway for the existing house on lot number 2, a 4-foot tall fence on lot number 1 bordering Lafayette Road and Andrew Jarvis Drive, landscaping areas and sidewalk improvements on Andrew Jarvis where the existing driveway is being removed. Moving on to sheet CO5, utility plan. We currently show a conceptual layout for the proposed utility services to homes on lots number 1 and 3. Up to this point, we've been in touch with Unitil and Eversource regarding the proposed gas and electric services, and we've received will serve letters from both of these providers. On the utility plan, we showed 2 gas service connections along Andrew Jarvis Drive running through the backyards of proposed lots 1 and 3. For electrical, Eversource has provided design input that we've reflected on our plan. They've requested that we have 2 new riser poles installed, one on the west side of Lafayette across the intersection of Hartwell. During our preliminary coordination with Eversource, we of trying to tie in to the existing utility pole along Andrew Jarvis. And they opted for the new utility poles as they really didn't want us running through the backyards to provide those service connections for electric. Not sure if you have any.
I debated with Casey ad nauseam. And because it's ridiculous, we got poles already on Andrew Jarvis, we're gonna just go down the sidelines that we're creating with power. But he said, no, Eversource will not pull wires through conduit. Back to that property.
Yeah, they will.
I fully anticipated I was gonna hear this, and I hate it too. I mean, the new poles, new overhead.
Look good, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Because you're not putting the pole in front of the historic building.
Okay, we'll be glad to hear it.
We worked real hard to space those poles out, so it was in front of that building. when We did this intersection, so.
It's good to know. So moving ahead to the proposed sewer and water services, we've had preliminary coordination with the water department. And currently we're showing a 6-inch gravity line leaving lot 1, tying into a sewer manhole at the intersection of Lafayette and Arville Ave. For lots number 2 and 3, we're proposing 2 force main lines with exterior E1 pump systems that would tie into a proposed force main that runs parallel to Artville off the north shoulder of the road. There weren't any major concerns raised in preliminary discussion with Jim Tao. He wants to go into a little bit more detail in a following meeting just to look at how we connect into that existing manhole with those sewer service connections. And for proposed water, we're showing lines for lots 1 and 3 running through the backyard and tying into an existing 12-inch water line on Andrew Jarvis Drive.
Almost. Showing attention to the wrong one.
The one to the south.
Lot 1 is correct, lot 3 is wrong.
Oh,
You
okay.
connected one to each.
Yep, I see, thank you. So yeah, both of the service lines would connect to that southerly line that's located on Andrew Jarvis.
So you're gonna have to show sidewalk repairs for both those different houses for the connections.
Yeah, and the lot 1, we actually. kind of-
Yeah, I see it's under the, right, yep. But you're showing the water line going into the back of the garage on lot 1.
Yeah, it needs to shift over about 5 feet.
Yeah, it needs to shift over.
Just a little
into a- easement, right.
Yeah.
Yep. The other thing I kind of noticed was the pump station you're proposing for lot 2, you're showing it on lot 3.
Yeah, we would end up providing an easement there.
So there's really no reason.
Yeah, the initial thought was to try to provide a buffer from the existing wall on lot 2. There's only about a 3 or 4 foot offset from the edge of that wall if we were to try to squeeze in that E1 pump system along the property line.
Can I explain the answer? There's a nice retaining wall there now. It's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
We don't want to disturb it. Right now, the sewer runs underneath it and out that way the way it's shown. So I don't see how we, without undermining that wall, I don't see how we hammer it to the ledge to set the E1 pump, be right next to the wall. It has to be right next to that wall.
It's got put a fitting on, not have a pump station
Yeah, probably could.
in it. That way it's not a lot.
Right.
The E1 pump for lot 3 says interior. Do you plan to bring that outside?
Yeah, the plans have actually had a couple minor changes since we made this submittal, but after talking with the water department, they requested that we locate it on the exterior, so we'll be showing it a 4 or 5 foot offset from that same location.
Okay.
If no one else has any comments, for
So
the
you're
utility
clear?
plan.
What's the driveway spacing? Lot 1 should definitely be farther from.
30-foot minimum distance from Lafayette Road. If we're gonna hold to our driveway permit, which Technically, this doesn't apply because it's a private road.
Well, the 30 foot is shown at the same as the setback. So we've got about 35.
So the one thing, Joe, you're showing a full basement on lot 3.
Yes,
And the water table is at 24 inches down.
yeah, no, we're good with that.
So it's almost a level.
No, we've got about 18 inches between. We're below the estimated seasonal high by a little bit, but we're 18 inches above the observed basement elevation. Basement elevation is only 6 inches lower than the end of the street. So it sits up there.
If you don't build up a lot.
Huh?
You don't build up a lot.
Yeah. It's all designed off the test bits to make sure we have separation to the.
Okay. Now, how are you gonna? You're gonna take care of all that roof?
Well, if you look at the, I brought some, I'm not sure, we didn't submit the plan.
We have that grading drainage plan at least on sheet CO
Yeah.
for.
There are basically two gables that face forward and run all the way to the back of the building. And they can be guttered, so we can get about 3/4 of the water off the roof to the backyard. And test bit 10 was pretty good in terms of everything, which is the one at that 31 elevation, low point swale there. So the idea is to get most of the roof draining to that low point swale and retain it and treat it there.
But you'd actually put in a like a swale, right?
Well, it probably grass.
That holds water and doesn't just
Right.
run off.
I like grass ones, but it could be designed soil.
Yeah, and we can burn it up, towards the end and then add in either
Right, 'cause
some
you
kind
don't
of
wanna-
overflow
you don't wanna
structure.
just-
like
We don't
passage.
want to just like.
Yeah, we can dam it up basically. As you come back around the right side of the building, create a 6-inch high dam there.
Whatever it needs to be, volume wise.
That's the concept, just to bring most of the waters back.
Because any of the water that you shed off this property goes right into the buffer.
You know,
Of a lot one.
Lot 1 had great test pits up at the 36 elevation up by our Andrew Jarvis there. So again, the idea is to raise the yard so that we're infiltrating at the high end of the lot at that 36 elevation.
So we'd be proposing kind of a similar layout to lot 3, just using infiltration swales or rain gardens that.
Rain garden.
Yeah.
That holds some volume.
And
Allow some water back into the ground.
with lot 1, because the driveway is being removed, the impervious is almost exactly the same in pre and post.
Yeah.
So there's really not a huge increase at all. Right in lot 1, lot 3 is obviously where we're adding additional impervious. So we haven't really gotten too far along with our.
Yeah, the front half of lot 1 would drain just untreated to the street, but like. It's gonna create production.
All right, so we need some fine detail.
Is there any other feedback that any of the members have for this?
You're replacing the fence along the corner of Andrew Jarvis and New one.
Yeah, that's correct. It's currently a wooden fence and we'd be replacing it with a 4-foot tall fence and then adding landscaping. on
So
the
there's
backside.
setbacks for fences that you need to be aware of, so that you need sight distance. If it's over 30 inches tall,
Okay,
you're gonna have to set it back and have a change the corner on the corner so that people can see and lose some space. Break the fence down. Pushing the rail for a reason.
Due to the length of a lot of this. Around that.
There's an existing hydrant at the intersection on the south corner of Argo and Lafayette, and that's roughly 270 feet from the edge of the building on lot 3. So
So it's the length of the fire department access road. Turn the line, turn around.
okay, so lot 1 would sprinkle over the lot.
Lot 3.
Lot 3.
Just the one, just the one.
Andrew Jarvis Drive?
Yes,
In other words,
yeah, I mean, that where they're running the river water.
so but you still want, because you want, are you suggesting?
Oh, yeah, I know, we wouldn't count Andrew Jarvis Drive as access.
Oh, okay,
It's too far back.
too far back, yeah.
So,
Plus it's where all the power lines are.
so only the one house that's furthest away. And, you know, I think, I vaguely remember we did a turnaround once that was an easement on the driveway, that's a long driveway. So it'd be an easement on the part that's not required to park cars in front of the garage.
I mean, we wouldn't allow it on a driveway because we can't get people in the cars on the driveway. Folks are like, what's what I'm gonna do it.
Cars? Oh, the driveway. Oh, Joe drove it, must have showed.
Nick, do you have something? Rebecca?
So I just have some questions about Hill Avenue. It looks like it's going to be subdivided. Looks like there's an access egress and there's access easement to lot 2, map 229. I don't know how if anyone else is accessing it. I'd say on south of the site. I can't tell what the east are.
It's the two houses across the street.
Do they access it through by East Park?
Yes.
Does that easement include them?
Yeah, it's for those two houses.
It's for those two houses, okay, it's not this one. So, I guess just trying to make sure that everybody still has access to that. And I'm presuming that once it is, that it would require a new easement, because now you have 3 lots here and we all need partially. sharing that
Well, it's
easement.
confusing. Artwell is actually an easement on the existing lot, our existing lot.
Right, but now
So-
it's gonna be subdivided, so does the easement gonna have to be changed to give all abutting?
Yes, it'll be an
owners
easement on
access?
all 3 of our lots.
Okay, so we'll just leave it kind of.
So, okay, yeah, that's a good
So
point.
that everybody has access, and now the ownership will be different for that, presumably, because it looks like the lot,
Real.
it's gonna have 3 separate owners, so it's now belongs to one lot, and so he's gonna have to make, for example, lot 3 has to obviously have easement off of lot 1 and lot 2.
Yeah.
And then also, obviously south.
Yeah.
That's one of the, things that I have. And then the other thing that came up, I'm not sure, is that the lot coverage needs to, I guess, reflect also Argo Avenue, since they're all part of the property. One thing that Steph's going to see.
Well, the CUP is for the ADU,
Okay. Oh, that's right. so you-
and it likely needs site plan approval, given there's 3 going to be being added for the project.
you're more than that's required. So 3 units, the ADU would constitute.
Oh, it does.
It does.
So that triggers
It's a
site
dwelling.
plan, site plan. That's
I don't
interesting.
see that. Well, it's not really interesting. It's a dwelling unit.
Yeah, true. We just didn't realize it.
Got a kind of nitpicky one. 2 water services are referred to as one's Poly, one's CTS. You have your leaders.
Yep, it actually has been updated too since we made this move.
There was one more nitpicky thing. Connecting into the sewer manhole. in Lafayette Road. Connecting into a 12-inch sewer line. So you're inversely 6 inches higher than inverse soil. Otherwise, they will never drain.
Yeah.
It's about
Do you have any issue with the service line for gravity tying directly into that?
It should actually tie into a Y directly upstream of the manhole. Ideally, the force main, I think we're okay with, because we like to have accessibility to them. And as Jim Toe indicated, the last 6 to 8 feet of that will have to be 6 inch.
Yeah.
So that there's a chance to, skip before it.
There's a structure to that. That's so, and I'm planning on follow the meeting with them after this, so.
So the force main can go directly. Sewer line should get cut in the Y. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll break that. Sorry.
See what it says. I'm sure they'll be able to budget a little bit if,
Oh, no bunch. Yeah.
I don't know if everyone knows, but Aaron was retired from the police department, so.
Yeah. Did? Even tell us. That's one way to clear your pocket. As long as nobody's leaving.
So I guess we're gonna move appointee from the police department. Maybe.
I think we should get Mark.
Mark, you there?
So Eric, you're gonna, yeah, I think we're done. Eric, you're gonna get Darren's iPad.
Okay.
And that should be ready for next week. And then we'll have to figure something else out. You appointing.
Thank you.
I do. So, it's at home.